Good morning. I'm Councillor Diane Donaldson. I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee B of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, can you all please mute your microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure. Can you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of committee members unless you are the person speaking? This is to reduce bandwidth. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could everyone attending today's meeting please put their mobile phones on silent and ensure they're situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or any unnecessary noise emanating from radios, TVs, etc. Thank you for that. I'm speaking slowly and clearly so everyone can follow. It is vitally important, for what I hope are obvious reasons, that those attending this meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I also confirm this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. I advise that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's meeting YouTube site, the link which is available in the agenda, and that members of the press public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Members are reminded that they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. And no apologies were submitted for today's hearing. I confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of March 2022 at 10:00 hours. And also the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of April 2022 at 12:00 hours. Can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect of Takis Grill, Unit A, 272 Montgomery Business Park, 272 Montgomery Street, Sparkbrook, Birmingham, B11 1EN. I'll begin with some introductions. My name is Councillor Diane Donaldson, and I'm chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are other members of the subcommittee, Councillors Mike Sharp and Adam Higgs. Also present in this meeting are the following officers: Licensing Officer Apindra Nandra.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Committee Manager Katie Townsend.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. And Committee Lawyer Joanne Swampillai.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Could I ask all parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, Salah Bakil Abdul Rahman.
Good morning, Jane.
Good morning. And Russell George.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Next, those making representations. Martin Key, Environmental Health.
Good morning, Chair. Martin Key from Environmental Health. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask if any persons making representations wishes to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Nobody wishes to withdraw. I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may, at my discretion, amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online, but wish to assure all that any such amendments will not impact on the party's right to a fair hearing. We'll be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of the icons on your toolbar is a speech bubble. Click on the speech bubble to go into chat. If you do not have access to the chat function for any reason, please use the raise a hand function to indicate you wish to speak. The button is usually fourth from the right on the toolbar. You can also, of course, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Can you all confirm they have access to the chat facility by typing your own name now? Officers will also type their job title. The meeting will not proceed until you all have done so. So, everyone, Katie?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Please keep this chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting in order that everyone can follow the messages being posted in the chat. If any participant has dialed in on an audio telephone rather than Microsoft Teams, please speak now to confirm that you can hear and be heard. I don't believe we have anyone dialing in today. Okay. With the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you're the person speaking. If there are any problems with bandwidth which cause difficulties with the sound, I may, in my discretion, ask everyone to turn their cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone able to hear and be heard. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? If so, please indicate that you wish to raise a point by typing speak into the chat function or using the raise a hand function now. Okay. Thank you. Now I'll briefly outline the procedure which we'll be following at today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer, Bhupender Nandra, will present the report. Then the applicant will be asked to present their case. We're asking if this could be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Can I ask all parties to speak as slowly and as clearly as they possibly can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes. And the meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. If at any time it's somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but will try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or those present, they must signify this by using the chat facility set out on the right-hand side of the screen you are viewing this meeting on. The meeting manager will alert me if I do not notice messages in the chat. I will determine verbally or in writing on the chat facility the order in which questions are dealt with. So at any point in the meeting, if you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function and the meeting manager will ensure that we come to you at the appropriate moment. If at any point you cannot hear or having problems with your internet connection, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager. The chair will then ask the person speaking to repeat what they have just said. It is therefore important that you use the chat function as soon as you're unable to hear the person speaking. It may well be that the problem is caused by people still having their microphones or cameras on, which creates interference. So I'll remind everyone to please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras when you are not the person speaking. Could I point out that occasionally it may be necessary for subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then return to this meeting and continue. Please note that if any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council's website fails, I will ask you all to mute your microphone, cameras, and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any time this meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I will ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. Can I stress that no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard? At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision. They will go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. I hope that's reasonably straightforward. So with that, can I ask Licensing Officer Bhupendra Nandra to present the report, please, as slowly and clearly as you can, please.
Thank you, Chair. A temporary event notice was submitted on the 21st of April 2022 by Salah Bakil Abdul Rahman in respect of Taki's Grill, Unit A, 272 Montgomery Business Park, 272 Montgomery Street, Sparkbrook, Birmingham, B11 1EN, which was served on the responsible authorities on the 22nd of April 2022. The purpose of the report is to consider the objection notice to the temporary event notice, which initially sought to permit the provision of late night refreshment to operate on the 8th of May 2022 until 14th of May 2022 from 11 p.m. until 4 a.m. each day, with the activities to cease at 11:59 p.m. on Saturday 14th of May 2022. After discussions with West Midlands Police, the applicant has agreed to amend the scope of the TEN with the provision of late night refreshment to operate from Monday to Thursday 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. indoors, 1 a.m. until 2 a.m. takeaways and deliveries are through a hatch, Friday to Sunday 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. indoors, with 2 a.m. until 3 a.m. takeaways and deliveries through a hatch. The temporary event notice is attached at Appendix 1. An objection notice has been received from Environmental Health, which is attached at Appendix 2. The amendment to the TEN, as agreed with West Midlands Police and the applicant, is attached at Appendix 3. Site location plans are attached at Appendix 4. Under the licensing system of TENs, no actual permission is required to carry out a licensable activity on a temporary basis. An applicant must merely give notice of his intentions to operate a licensable activity to the licensing authority. However, the police or local authority exercising environmental health functions may intervene to prevent such an event taking place or agree a modification of the proposed arrangements, and their intervention may in some cases result in the licensing authority imposing conditions on a TEN. Where a 10 is submitted, the licensing authority must consider the objection at a hearing before a counter notice or a notice including a statement of the conditions can be issued. Conditions may only be applied if the 10 is in connection with licensable activities at a licensed premises. It must be noted a premises license is not currently in force for Takki's Grill. When giving a 10, consideration must also be given to the 4 licensing objectives. Therefore, the options available to the subcommittee today are to issue the 10 or to issue a counter notice. Thank you, Chair. Chair, you're on mute, Chair.
Sorry, thank you. Would the applicant like to make their presentation now, please?
Hello, Chair. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, to make it easy, my name is Russell George and I've got the applicant next to me, Salah. I'm basically a compliance guy. I've got a safety consultancy. So I've dealt with licensing and safety issues on a wide array across the city, including nightclubs and bars and restaurants and so on. So that's where we are. The background to this is we are applying for a full premises license. Takki set up here on the 18th of March, but when they set up, they were unaware they needed the license to go beyond 11 o'clock. Now they've been made aware, they've gone through proper processes and applied for a full license, and then an array of 10s until the full license is given time to consider. Is that clear with everybody so far?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When they first opened, they had a visit within a couple of weeks. There was no complaints from people outside of the area. I'll explain what I mean there is that you visualize this restaurant, its main entrance is not on the main road on Montgomery Street. It's actually served at the rear into an industrial estate. So that keeps the nuisance to a massive level contained at the back of the main high street. The local area itself, there isn't much residential. There's one HMO opposite, but we've had no complaints from them and spoken to them, and they've got no objections to this. We've spoken to them in person. And all else we have, and I've got some pictures to show you that I'll send them by email maybe after this so people can visualize where we are. And that shows that we've got 2 schools opposite, which obviously are closed during the lifestyle activities that you're talking about, 11 o'clock. And then just commercial premises, it seems to be, that's all around this area. So it's not really a residential area. To liken this, we've seen another license premises called Grilla Pizza on Taunton Road, which is license 1916. It's in a similar situation where it's a takeaway restaurant that's in a residential area, and that already has a license till 2 a.m. And we see this place as being very similar, to be honest. This is not somewhere where alcohol is served, and the dynamics of the customer base is that people who come here generally, well, their culture and their religions won't allow them to drink alcohol anyway, so they're that kind of community. It's a community-based restaurant. I've seen that myself when I've come in here. Everyone's quite happy and friendly and seems to travel from the local community. So it's a local community business serving the community is how we see it. So there's no recorded music at all. It is literally just a restaurant that serves food. Okay, risk assessments have been done, and I'm quite happy. And we've spoken to Westminster Police and saw their original concerns, so we downgraded from 4 a.m. and we're going to do that on the full license application as well. And we're quite happy for them to trade just till 1 a.m. during the week if that's acceptable, and just the extra hour where the premises will be closed, but there'll be like a window open for takeout drivers and Uber Eats and Just Eat and so on. The same on the weekend, Friday till Sunday, 11 till 2, and then just the last hour. And Westminster Police were happy with that, but I'm aware that Environmental Health have objections, and we'd be interested to hear what their objections are and to see whether we can do something to help trying to lay their concerns with that, really. We've also agreed, like I say, to have a steward outside at night, just to keep people quiet and calm outside, but also to keep an eye on things, and also to do litter picks as well. When I've come here myself to do all their risk assessments, to be honest, it's very clean. It's kept very clean and tidy outside, and they already do keep an eye on their litter. Salah, unless you've got anything else you'd like to add.
I'm happy with what you said.
Okay. And to save the committee's time, that's briefly where we are. We've heard the Environmental Health trying to keep it till midnight, but we believe that they could stay open a little later. And especially on the Thames, it would be interesting for the Thames to be granted to see if there were any complaints. I know that's a bit of a risk take, but there's obviously a full premises license at stake here, and it will affect this client's business drastically, because most of his business is served between that sort of 11 till 2, really, and that's where most of his business is. So I hope that's clear to everybody.
Thank you. Yes, is that everyone happy with that? You've understood.
Yeah, we'll keep it to that, because you give us 20 minutes, but I think that's all we can really say here. There isn't much that goes on other than just food. So to be honest, it's not going to be like alcohol and late night recording music. The crowd is very, very placid and quiet.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. George. Are there any questions from members?
Not from me, Chair.
None from me, Chair, either.
Thank you. Thank you both. Would those making representations like to make their presentation now, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it as brief and short as I can. You've heard that the application was made originally with a 0400 hours termination, and it has been adjusted following discussions with the police. And we also have a premises licence application, which is currently being dealt with by a colleague. No supporting information was submitted in respect of the tent, so I assessed it on what I was given, which was a statement that the premises wish to stay up until 0400. The business itself, as you've heard, has recently opened. It's a hot food takeaway. It does burgers, chips, char grill, barbecue, all sorts of various products that are fried and cooked. I did try to contact the applicant by phone, left a message, I got no response. We've also emailed the applicant in respect of our concerns about the operating hours for the premises licence and had no response to that. I note the applicant has said in their submission that they've got risk assessments. None of those have been submitted to us for a review. I would disagree significantly that this is an industrial area. The area around the site to the north is on an industrial estate. Indeed, the premises doesn't have planning consent to operate as a hot food takeaway restaurant. It has a light industrial use going back to 1981. The area around it is primarily a housing area to the south. The nearest residential is some 40 metres away, which, as you've heard, is a HMO. However, the properties on the adjacent streets by line of sight less than 50 metres away. So the area is not an industrial area. The industrial uses on the estate are all low-key and daytime operations. There is actually a wedding banqueting venue there, which only opens 1 o'clock till 6 o'clock at night. And there is nothing else in the area that operates late at night, hence our concern that this is completely out of character with the area. I won't go into the revised hours because they make no difference effectively to my objection, because my objection is based on the noise and odour impacts of the operations beyond 11 o'clock. We have spoken or written to the applicant suggesting we would be supportive of midnight, but not beyond that. And as I say, you've heard the submission that they don't think that can work. Indeed, the applicant's agent has just said most of their business occurs between 11 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning, hence really supporting our concerns about the late night activity. The premises itself is small, and the hatch that's been talked about for hot food takeaway is on the main road facing the back of the residential properties. So in my view, it's out of character with the area. It's got a low level extraction system, which we wouldn't approve in terms of noise or odour control, given the location. Our concern is noise from people, noise from the extraction plant running continuously through till 3 o'clock in the morning, and also vehicles and people coming to collect and the general movement in the area. This is not a late night activity area. There is nothing else in the area that operates to these sort of hours. Therefore, my objection is on the basis that this will cause adverse impact on the residential amenities in the area in terms of odour and noise, and fails to uphold the licence and objective of public nuisance. I'd finally just add that I don't think the provisions in the Act and the whole concept of attends is to allow an applicant to operate to see if they cause a problem. This is about trying to avoid the problems being caused and avoid impact on, particularly on public nuisance. So despite the revised hours and what's been agreed with the police, I would still object on the basis of this is out of character of the area and fails to fulfil the licence and objective of public nuisance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
No, Chair.
Thank you, councillors. Is that all the submissions those making representations wish to make?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Do those making representations wish to make a closing submission?
I'll keep it very brief because I've just spoken. Effectively, our view is that this would lead to adverse impact on the licence and objective of public nuisance. You've heard from the applicant that they've started operation without the relevant consents in place, and they're now seeking to use TENS to permit them whilst the premises licence is being reviewed. Most of their business occurs after 11 o'clock at night, and in my view, that is out of character of the area and will lead to public nuisance. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, does the applicant wish to make a closing submission?
Hello, Chair.
Hello?
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Martin, for that representation. We're kind of clear what the actual full objection is. We weren't clear with that beforehand. It's very correct in what it says, Martin. Although we don't think it is totally out of character. Like I say, there are similar premises operating in residential areas just nearby from here that have operated with a license 2 AM with no problems. I've obviously put the full license in. And it is, if you look down the street, and you will see that it is generally mostly commercial activities that are going on. There's garages next door, for instance, even on the main road, and furniture shops and so on down below. It's just the HMO opposite, really, that we see that's in the locality. We obviously put the full license in. We're happy to come up with some negotiation. When it comes to the hatch being on the front, that can easily be reverted to the rear. That's not a problem. We can do all the activities on the rear and come from the actual trading estate itself. So we're quite comfortable with that. I don't think it will cause a problem, but obviously that's the council's consideration to consider that, really. The TENS is a good way of seeing whether it would, to be fair. We haven't had any complaints as yet. That's the end.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's kind of sharp. Sorry, I've just thought of a question, if you don't mind.
Certainly, go ahead, Councillor Sharp.
Can somebody tell me exactly where the residential properties are and what roads they're on? Because looking at the maps, it doesn't actually show you.
Chair, I can share a screen with a map if that helps.
That would be
Please.
helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, you just have to bear with me. I won't just talk. That's the aerial view that I've got off Google.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, does the applicant wish to make a closing submission?
Just to respond to the council's request there, I've actually taken some photos today. I don't know how to share them, but if they want to be seen, so you can actually see the outside in the street. That'd be useful.
Yes, if you can share them, that would be helpful.
Okay, maybe we'll try and work out how to do that. From here, this one. That's the right. I'm just trying to work out how to do that. Can anyone give me some technical assistance? Okay. No. Oops. No, sorry, my technical skills aren't that's brilliant to be able to do that. I'm sorry, I apologise for that. Oh, well, let's open share tray. 1 second.
There is an icon at the top of the toolbar that says share, and that will allow you to share your screen.
Is this open share tray? Is that what it's called? Screen share?
It's, if you go to the right-hand corner where it says leave, there's a big blue white button that says leave. It's actually next to it, to the left of it.
It might be next to your microphone.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, open share tray. Okay. No, sorry, Chair. I don't think we're going to be able to do that.
Okay, all right. Well,
It was just to give an idea of the local area, basically, because it's. But even looking at the map, if you look at the map, you can see it's still quite commercial around there.
fine. Okay, so we'll move on then without the pictures. Right. I will now ask all parties to leave the Microsoft Teams meeting, and the members and the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into the private session while the subcommittee makes the decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Thank you.
Thank you.